Hello and welcome. This is Pepin from Pepin Reacts, and here I am with my best friend. His name is Meader. Meader, how you doing?
I'm here too. That's my catchphrase.
It's his catchphrase. And here we have another exciting episode of a show called Breaking Bad. Now, Breaking Bad, I once thought was about a guy making meth, but really, in actuality, it's about Walt Jr.
It is.
And I'm not, opposed to that because Walt Jr. is the man.
He is. So I mean, you thought it was about a man making meth, but really it's about meth making a man.
Whew. I like that.
And that man is Walt Jr.
Now, for this series, I have seen almost to where we are right now. I maybe seen one or two episodes beyond it, but I haven't seen beyond that. And that was like 10 years ago when I was coming out, or whatever it was. Meader's seen the whole thing, so he has more knowledge, but he's not going to spoil. And this should be a spoiler-free thing, even if you have not seen it. So, feel free to watch with us. Just be careful with the comments. Also, just one more thing here, and I was actually thinking about this last night before I went to bed. And it's, writing-wise, the story is very, succinct. And, things make sense. I mean, maybe there's some plot holes, but they're more like threads, like things that are there. But one thing I just can't understand, maybe they'll fill in this detail at some point, but, I mean, let me just check my bases here. So, Walt has cancer, right?
Hmm.
And Skylar is pregnant, right?
Yeah.
So the one question that I don't think the show has really addressed is, if Walt's gonna die soon, what's he gonna do to support his kid after he dies?
I don't know. I hope they address that at some point.
Like this whole storyline about him cooking meth and being a badass is really cool, but I think there's that character motivation that really needs to be addressed. It's kind of the sideline, to be honest. I mean, they actually even brought it up, I don't think, right?
If they did, I missed it for a season and a half.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like there's maybe the background thing, and perhaps we'll see it within the next season or so. I mean, at least brought up. I mean, right now they're just ignoring that question, and again, the whole meth storyline and all this stuff. It's very interesting, but I think if Walt really needs to be a family man, or if he really wants to be that, maybe he should start considering that question about what he's going to do for the baby.
You should start drafting an email to the writers now.
Okay. In my defense here, I don't know if they're going to address that, because maybe they're building up to something.
It's possible.
It seems unlikely because we're in season 2 and they still haven't talked about it. But and it's already done. So I guess but maybe they can talk about it in interviews if they haven't done it. So we'll only find out here. So guys, definitely get ready for this reaction because it's going to be great. Okay, that was episode 27 of Breaking Bad. This episode, a lot happened. This was a pretty intense episode, I gotta say. A whole lot of character drama. A lot of the plot aspects got moved. And I think the number one theme of this episode was communication. What's your general thoughts on this, Meader?
Yeah, no, definitely a lot of change in this episode, and also a lot of not change. But yeah, definitely a good episode.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of change. A lot of different plot aspects are being moved forward, and it's a little scary. So I think there's 2 main plot lines to this one. I guess just 3, but Skylar kind of interacts with the Walt plot line. But so let's have Walt and Jesse, and a theme I think was communication here, and how the communication they're having broke down, and how they're trying to reach back out, but in a fictitious sort of way. Jesse was trying to reach back to his parent, but kind of like Walt said, and it's pretty accurate. He's a user. He didn't really consider his parents there. He just considered himself. He was I don't know, almost like a baby, just kind of whining and just saying, I want this, I want that. Absolutely no consideration. At the same time, that's kind of Walt's situation too. I mean, a little bit different. he wants this relationship with his family, but he doesn't want to like delve into anything that happened or has happened. Like it's a I don't know interesting dynamic there. What's your thoughts on that, Meader?
On what?
On the communication breakdown and how like do you agree with me that Jesse was kind of like being a bit of a spoiled kid here?
I don't know. I mean, he feels that that house is his, that he earned it, that he feels like he's earned at least something, and every step of the way, every person has just given him nothing, or taken everything away from him in his eyes.
I don't know if I buy that. I feel like he feels like he's owed stuff, and he's not getting it, and he's blaming other people instead of blaming himself. Like, as far as could be ascertained, as far as the legal side, that house was not his. It was his parents. It was passed on to them. And, of course, they talked to him a bit about, like, maybe having him take it over or something, or 50-50 of a sale. But, it's kind of like, that's one thing, but there's no legal contract there, and that was, like, a hopeful sort of thing, like, something you might, like, plan out. But I think he had a false expectation. Like, if he's selling drugs down there or manufacturing meth, like, he has a completely wrong expectation that it's still his house.
I mean, in a legal sense, maybe, yeah. I don't think he's thinking in legal senses, though.
You disagree, like, on, like, maybe a personal sense?
In his mind, that was his aunt's house, and he's the one who took care of his aunt while she was dying. So that was him working, and his payment was the house. And so he's believing that in a moral sense, he is owed the payment for the work that he's done. And that payment's being taken from him.
I see. I guess my interpretation of that situation, and we can dive more into like the episode details a bit, but my interpretation of that situation was that maybe there's an aspect of truth there, kind of like there's aspects of truth with some of the other stuff he was saying. But I feel like most of it was just fabricated to get his mother to agree. Like he could pull that card, but that's a card he's pulling as opposed to something he may have believed. I think he still believes he's entitled to that, but he believed he was entitled to half of Walt's money, which he already got half. Which, okay, there's a bit of an argument there that maybe he is entitled to half because Walt and Jesse's shenanigans ended up with him getting his half getting taken and stuff. Like Walt was implicated in that, but I feel like he has the conclusion and he's coming up with reasons to justify it to convince the other person, as opposed to the other way around.
I think he has more of a right to the house than he does to Walt's money.
And
I think he truly believes that house is his, and that his parents are fucking him over. And, all of the other stuff he said when his mom showed up at his house was like obviously bullshit. Like, oh, I'm going to be going to business school and this is a good wake up call. This is good. Like, obviously that's all recycled bullshit that's worked in the past that he isn't working now. But I do think he fully believes that he's owed something. Okay,
I gotcha. So maybe everything else except for that house portion is false, which I could see that. I saw it more like a reactionary thing, but I think that tempered my opinion on that because maybe that is his sticking point. Maybe that is actually where he's getting fucked. And so, as far as Jesse's storyline, I'm trying to remember how it started because he gets the house taken away. He's kind of caught off guard with it. The mother seems a bit softer, and the father's more stern. As far as the parents are concerned, I think the parents had to do that because they found meth-making tools in there. Like, using something like possession is 9/10 of the law, which I'm not sure what that means exactly. But, they could be implicated since it is legally their house if there's meth being made there. So I think that's what they had to do. And they can't just take Jesse's word for it. He's going to stop doing it. Like, I wouldn't believe Jesse if he told me that. So
I think in his mind, they should be that he should be the owner of that house, not them. So what they should do in his mind is give the house to him, so that then they're not legally culpable, and he can, he still can live in the house.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a solution to it. I wouldn't like that solution myself if I was the parents, because like I have control of this asset, and now, I'm transferring it over there because I want to avoid legal responsibility. It seems like a little bit of a, it's kind of like taking morphine to solve a headache. Like it solves the headache, but at extreme cost.
I mean, but that house doesn't belong to them.
I still think it does.
It does, of course, legally.
Yeah.
But I'm talking from Jesse's perspective. That house doesn't belong to them.
Yeah, I suppose part of my hang up here too is I don't know if I trust Jesse's perspective. It seemed like there's an element of truth there because the mother's reaction, she got kind of like, I don't know, a little bit distant and dissociative, it seemed. So it seemed that there's aspects of truth, but I don't know. Does this mean just assuming there's more to that story? Like, obviously this is probably her sister, right? And they probably had a relationship, and maybe there's more to it than just like, Jesse took care of her when she was dying. Also, is that the aunt that died from cancer that Jesse brought up? Okay. So there's also a sort of like carryover plot-wise from him taking care of the aunt, and then also him taking care of Walt in a way. I mean, not exactly lines up, but I think it's a sort of similar dynamic there, or a parallelism, I think would be the thing, because that really affected them.
Yeah. Cancer coming back.
So he is getting kicked out, and then they gave him some time, and then they just kind of like break in, essentially. Or they don't break in. They just kind of get in there, and it's like, hey, Jesse, out. And he's got all of his like bong stuff and like drug stuff, and I don't think he took him seriously, which or maybe did, or I don't know.
No, he clearly did not.
Yeah. And, they got the moving crew there, and moving crew is probably going to be a little bit confused with all the paraphernalia. Maybe they'll just be like, yep, sounds about right. We're warned about this. And so they start taking his stuff out, and he's like kind of freaking out, and he keeps calling Walt, and then Walt's like, stop calling me. And there's this theme of like him getting mad at the phone. And obviously there's an obvious one there where it's like he's trying to communicate with people, like his needs, and none of them are getting met. And he's mad at the communication method itself, or he's mad with communication in general. It's kind of breaking down. But I feel like there's something else there. Can you think of anything, or am I just grasping at straws?
No, I think it's pretty literal there.
Okay. And so he's getting super mad at the phone. He sees this homeless guy, and I think that was a bit of a like, this is where Jesse thinks he's going to be going. And so that was kind of the thing there. Also, we touched base with the gas station for some reason. I don't know why that gas station's like a recurring character, but he meets Walt there, telling Walt that he needs half the money, and Walt's like, "What? No," and they kind of go back and forth there, and then Walt's like, "Nope, not getting the money. No, I'm leaving first." See the cop there, a little bit of a tiny bit of drama there, but this whole aspect with Jesse saying Walt should give him half the money, kind of like I was alluding to before, I don't think that makes much sense. It makes a little bit of sense because it's like if Walt had nothing to do with why Jesse lost the money, I think it would make more sense because, if Walt had nothing to do with Jesse losing that money, then Walt would have a very, very strong case. But Walt has something to do with Jesse losing that money. So I think Walt has some culpability there. But if he had no culpability in that instance, like Jesse resting half the money because he lost it, doesn't make any sense to me. What's your thoughts and opinions on that?
I mean, Jesse doesn't have any claim to Walt's money. They split the money already. And then there was no more shared money. So I agree that he has no claim to that money, regardless of what, like, I don't see how the method of Jesse losing his money should make a difference.
Well, it's kind of like, imagine you have some money. Let's say we made some money some way, right? And then I have the money in my house, and then you come over my house and you leave the door open, leave the safe open and everything, and then some burglar comes in and just steals it, or some kid off the street. Like, certainly we split the money 50-50, and that was all my money, but your actions caused a burglar to come in easily and just swoop up that money where they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. It's kind of a bad analogy there, but there's some sort of culpability there that you have because you set forth the circumstances to which that money was stolen.
But I don't think Walt did set forth the circumstances to which the money was stolen.
The argument that Jesse had, but that he started the stuff with Tuco, and that he kind of escalated that situation. Is that argument not valid in your opinion?
No, not really.
Why wouldn't it be?
I don't understand why it would be. Like, Walt, like that, they were selling the drugs. Like, they wouldn't have even had the money in the first place if it wasn't for Walt starting things with Tuco. I don't know. I don't understand how that's. Yeah, maybe.
To be fair, it is a false start though, because they wouldn't have gotten that money if they hadn't stolen the drugs, or sold the drugs to Tuco. So that money was only there because of dealing with Tuco. So it is a little bit of a false start, and Jesse did get involved in that, though he kind of got caught up in it with it a little bit more. Like, I don't know, because they were cooperating, but Walt was more the pusher there and kind of getting Jesse pushed into it. But at the same time, Jesse could have still left that arrangement, I think. Or was he caught up with that duress-wise with Tuco?
Well, I mean, he was absconded by Tuco in the first place. Like, when... because their plan was that Jesse was going to leave town, and Jesse put all his money in the thing, in the car, and Walt took the gun away for himself. So... Walt had all of the power, and Jesse was just trying to leave, and that's when he got abducted. And then they together abducted Walt. So I don't know. I'm coming around to it a bit.
Yeah.
But regardless.
Yeah, you're convincing me less of it, though. It's a confusing thing, because I think I thought initially that he had no claim to it, and then I thought maybe he actually has some claim to that, statement. But now I'm thinking... he probably didn't, because that money wouldn't be there if Jesse didn't get involved in this to begin with. I mean, maybe still throw him a bone because it's a sticky situation and partially to do with you. But I don't know. I feel like the separation's more there just because he wasn't held at gunpoint for it.
I mean...
And the money wouldn't existed unless... Okay.
He kind of literally was.
Okay, but it was more by Tuco, not by Walt.
Yeah.
So Walt,
yeah, but their plan was for, like, that was a plan that they had together for the actions that took place that led to Jesse being, the only reason that money was in the car to be stolen in the first place was because Walt and Jesse agreed to do that. So Walt was kind of a player to where Jesse's money went. Jesse, he didn't have as much. Now, there are other options Jesse could have had, but really, not really. Like, he needed to elope with the money. So, and then on top of that, the final plan for how they were going to get out of the legal situation was all Walt's idea. How to get out of the whole Tuco was just murdered by Hank thing. So, Jesse lost the money from that as well. So really, Walt's plan is what caused, in both instances, is what caused the money to disappear. So I don't know. I guess we flipped places.
Okay, I'm coming back more to my original position too here now.
Okay, so you unconvinced yourself and then convinced yourself again. Perfect.
It's so weird. I made the argument to you about like how you're wrong, and then you convinced me that you were right, and then you got convinced that I was right, and now you convinced me.
We swapped places, and then you came back. So, really, you convinced me by unconvincing yourself.
It seems to be the case. But yeah.
Perfect.
Now, I don't know if that would be a 50-50 sort of thing, but maybe like a 30-70 sort of thing, or I don't know.
I mean, if they're 50-50 partners, and he has claim to that money, it's a 50-50.
Yeah, yeah. At the same time, I think Jesse was kind of grasping at straws there a little bit too, because I don't think he would have played that card if it wasn't for the fact that he was in such a terrible situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he did. He played that card immediately, and Walt gave him a little bit of money. And then he played it again on the phone. So he played it 3 different times in 3 different situations.
Yeah.
On the phone, he had a couple of options, and once those were exhausted, he showed up again.
Yeah, I felt Walt's frustration with those calls from Jesse, because that's happened to me a couple of times. Like, someone's desperate for something that doesn't really involve you, but they're trying to, like, get you involved in. Yeah. And they just keep calling or keep messaging. And it's just like, just leave me the fuck alone. I don't care. Well, I guess here it's more like a responsibility sort of thing with Walt. And also the fact that he's calling his own house number, which, again, I mean, this is done a little bit back when they had flip phones, but still, this is why you don't have a home phone. You got to use virtual numbers. Why.
Just in case Jesse calls you.
Yep. MILFs. So Jesse ends up going to the, what do you call it, the dump or whatever? I don't know what it was. And he kind of sneaks in there, crosses the barbed wire, and then gets in the toilet, essentially. It's all blue. Again, I think there's a metaphor there for, like, blue he made as crystal. He gets covered in it. It's covered in shit, essentially. You know, it's kind of his situation. And then he gets there, and he goes on, like, the cardboard, almost like he is, like, a dog, you know, like, you know, where a dog shits. And a lot of weird stuff going on with that. I also think there's a little bit of comedy there, because I think you need a bit of comedy for this episode. And of course, the cousin comes in, and it's like, hey, you're on my property, get off. And with a shotgun. And they try to make a deal, and then the cousin doesn't want to make the deal and kicks Jesse out. Then the cousin tries to sell the methylamine and finds out he can make quite a bit of money. And then Jesse takes off. I don't know if this is going to, like, factor into, like, a later scenario here, because now we got the cousin who's going to be looking out for them. But granted, this was already like a gray or black market kind of transaction happening here. It's kind of unclear how much say or ability he's going to have to go after them.
No, for sure. Will he track them down? Will he cut his losses? He probably won't go to the police, but it's definitely a possibility.
Do you think he's more intimidating than Tuco? Because he seemed a bit more intimidating than Tuco there, to me.
No.
No? No. Okay. Maybe I'm stupid with that, but I feel like Tuco is a lot of talk. This guy is just kind of like, he'll just kill you. Like,
you watched Tuco murder a guy with his bare hands.
I mean, it was in self-defense.
Okay.
He was defending his ego, Steve. But
I feel like Skylar just let you talk yourself into a hole.
So he takes off with that, and he's got the meth equipment in there, I believe, right? Nothing has happened with that. And so, here's one aspect I'm confused about. Did it work prior? Because I thought that was the issue with him taking off with it prior, is that it didn't actually start up and couldn't go. Right. Did that get fixed at some point?
Yeah, the junkyard dealer said he fixed it. He said $750 for the repairs plus $500 you owe me at interest.
Oh, okay. So he repaired. Okay, that makes more sense. I don't know what I thought about repairs. I thought that was just like a black
for yeah, he said specifically like what he did too, I think.
Okay. It's just me not knowing enough about cars or caring enough about cars.
Yep.
But so Jesse takes off with it. Now they have a working vehicle, which is good. And he stupidly pulls into like Walt's front yard, and all sorts of bad stuff there, especially since Skylar has seen that vehicle before, presumably. But who knows if she was in enough of a mood to like even really notice it. So probably not.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Jesse gets let in there. He has a fight with Walt. Actually, the fight with Walt happens first. And I'm kind of surprised Jesse got aggressive like that. Are you?
No.
No?
I mean, he didn't have anything else. It backed him into a corner. Walt stripped everything from him and was being outrageously aggressive.
Yeah, I think a bit of that was transference because Walt had all this anger from the Skylar altercation and also just a total loss of control right there. And it was one of Walt's ways to try to get back a sense of control. It's just take all of that shit and put it on Jesse. And I guess Walt can talk a big game. I talk about Jesse talking a big game, but Walt can talk a big game, but he can't back it up physically.
Right.
Like he's just too weak. And Jesse manhandled him and started to choke him. And then when he was about to punch him, which I don't know if that was like gonna be like a Tuco sort of punch and just got punch him to death. Probably not. But Walt's like, do it. Almost like he wanted to die. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I think he wanted to be punished.
Oh, you wanted to be punished
in a physical manifestation way. Yeah.
Do you think there was any implication of death there?
Or potentially.
Okay. Because I took it as an implication of death, but you're taking it more as an implication of punishment, or maybe it's been more vague.
Both.
Okay.
Either.
Yeah.
I think at that point Walt was giving up control and saying, I deserve whatever you're going to be giving me. Whatever it is, I accept the consequences.
Right. And then they kind of have a bit of a moment, a bit of mirroring that happens there because they're both in the same sort of situation. They both kind of have lost their life. One on I guess both. I think Jesse has the worst hand here because Jesse doesn't have anything. He doesn't have like the physical house or anything like that, and he doesn't have the connections there. Like he doesn't have any real friends. It seems they're all.
What are they both working towards? What are both of their goals? In my estimation, they both lost the thing that they were actually working towards this entire time. Jesse's been doing this for money and for pride, and he was stripped of both of those things this episode completely stripped.
I see.
And Walt is doing it for his family, and he's completely lost his family. So both of them lost the things that they've been working for. So that's when they shuffled back in, both defeated, being completely stripped of everything. They were mirroring because they were in the same place they have lost everything they've worked for.
Yeah, that's a good point.
In a way, Walt giving Jesse money gives them both a 50-50 split of what they've been working for. Jesse gets money, and Walt gets some partnership back, some of that emotional back, and Jesse winning that fight kind of gives him some of that pride back, some of his own power, which he had completely lost.
And that's a good point right there because, yeah, the splitting of the money worked emotionally for Walt because it gave Walt that family in a sort of way, or that communication, that partner.
Kind of in a way, yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I think that was most well displayed where Walt asked Jesse, hey, want breakfast? And, Walt Jr. was about the breakfast, and then Skylar didn't mind it, but she kind of saw through it. It's like, oh, food. Okay, whatever. But, they didn't actually appreciate it. He wanted the camaraderie, but it wasn't there. And with Jesse, it was there. Like, Jesse's like, food? Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was when he was doing it for his family, it was a smokescreen. And at first, Skylar was optimistic about it, but as soon as he started lying again, she's like, okay, I see what's going on here. This is a smokescreen. This isn't genuine. In a way, it kind of was. Like, Walt did want to do that for his family because he's trying to apologize, but also he's trying to apologize, which is you know, it was more about like quote mending fences, like he said, than it was about like trying to take care of his family in that way. So then Skylar started seeing it as like seeing straight through it, not really caring. And Walt Jr. was just like ready to take whatever. He's like, where's breakfast the next day or whatever?
There was an aspect there with Jesse before we move on to the Walt storyline, and also I do think you're right there with the Walt stuff. Jesse visited one of his old friends who had a nice house, a kid. Jesse does not know how to talk to kids, but that guy didn't. It's actually kind of interesting because that guy, that his friend that he was talking to, he seemed like Jesse if Jesse dressed up in a suit and started talking a bit more fancy. Or a bit more like, I don't know, a bit more pretentious. But the guy seemed very similar to Jesse, but, you know, he had a wife, he had a kid, had a nice place, and it seemed more like he was just directed in, say, a more productive area. But he didn't seem like he was, like, opposed to, like, Jesse and what Jesse was about. But he also seemed like he was deferential to his wife and, like, the concerns of his family. Which, again, he has family, and then Jesse doesn't have family here. And it's kind of like a comparison, like Jesse to other person. Like Jesse feels that inferiority because he doesn't have any of that. He doesn't have those connections, those bonds, that family, his house, the wife, or anything like that. So he's just that's all he does is compare himself to others. And it's like, shit, I'm not anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, he's everything. Everything was taken from him this episode.
And so let's move on to Walt. I'm trying to remember how it started with Walt. Can you remember?
It was the breakfast. It was when Skylar woke up and Walt wasn't in his bed, and she called out to him, and he's like, I'm in the kitchen. So she started out like worried about him having disappeared. So it was kind of showing the lingering effects of what Walt's actions had done to Skylar's emotional well-being.
And there's a point in the episode, I'm trying to remember what it was, but Walt's whole thing was apologizing without reference to what he was apologizing. Or like he was pretending like nothing happened, and that kind of came to fruit in that argument he had with Skylar. But I do think he wanted that family back, because this is what I think the show is trying to reinforce the idea that Walt really does want the best for his family, because that's kind of a question I've had for a couple episodes here. Like, does he actually care about the family, or does he care more about the power he's getting from this pursuit of making meth? And it's not clear to me that he's been family focused, but I think this is kind of redirecting it. And like, yeah, he does want family. He is torn up about this. But he also has this other side to him, which is not integrated fully into him. And like, he needs both sides, and he can't get both sides.
Yeah. And the more he's pushing on the power side, the more he's losing his family.
And so Skylar is just not buying any of this, and Skylar starts doing the whole sort of thing with like
passive aggressive.
Yeah, passive aggressive.
Also pretending nothing's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like when someone's doing something to you, you do that back to them. You know, show them how it feels, and a point was being made there. And you think Skylar was right with that action? Or you think that was a productive thing for her to do?
I don't know. I mean, it ended up getting the result that she wanted in breaking Walter down. And they had that very final real conversation where she was like, you're bullshitting me, and I'm done with the bullshitting. And then he bullshitted her again. So it was like, that was him saying like, I can be honest for everything except for this one thing. And her being like, that's not good enough. Yeah.
And it makes me think, so Skylar kept on going out for like no good reason, or for a reason she wasn't specifying. And at the end there, we found out that she was smoking a cigarette. I thought maybe that she was doing that. What was I going to say? She was doing that in response to the argument that I just had, which I think is true. But I think she's been going out for cigarettes this whole time, ever since she's been. No.
She hesitated before putting it in her mouth.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So that was the first time she had done that. She was contemplating, do I want to break this barrier? That wasn't
okay. Yeah.
This is something I've done all the time type of reaction.
Okay, you're right about that. So I wonder what she has been doing. Probably nothing much. Maybe it's going in breweries or something like that.
I think it's irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just something, but not making meth as far as we know.
As far as we know.
Yeah. Who knows? That'd be kind of interesting. Like, we have Skylar making meth, Walt making meth. They actually find out that they're both into the same thing.
Yeah, they're competitors and they don't know it. This is like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith thing.
Ooh, I like it. So Walt is trying to make that connection back. It's working a bit for Walt Jr. Not terribly, though, because I feel like...
Is it? Is it, though?
I think so. I mean, he seems to like the food.
Yeah, but he also gave up his namesake. Which is very indicative of how Walter Jr. feels about the situation. He doesn't even want to be associated with his dad anymore.
Yep. Oh, that's true. And then Lewis is becoming his dad.
Yeah.
Very surely.
That.
Which, I understand, because like we haven't seen Lewis up until this point, and I wasn't expecting like a golden god to come down from the sky, but that's actually what we got.
Yeah.
And like, it's kind of like you see in certain media, like where like they show the face of God and you're like just disappointed because you're like, there's no way they could show like this amorphous idea of an ideal like in an actual like media form. Like it's best thought just to the imagination. But somehow they found the perfect person to cast this role here, and it just worked.
Yeah, hats off to the casting director. Really good job finding the Lewis.
And so he takes some driving and ends up that Lewis has been teaching him driving, him as being Walt Jr. and Walt. And so it's trying to show him. And at first I was kind of agreeing with Walt here because there's this whole thing about like he's doing pretty well, but he's using both feet there. And I'm like, no, you can't be doing that. You gotta like use one foot. But then ends up that he should have been using both feet because he's got his own limitations. And he essentially, it's kind of the crux of the episode. There's a problem here. And instead of seeing that problem, Walt Sr. is pretending like it doesn't exist and just do what he's doing anyway, which is what he's doing the whole episode. Like there's this limitation, this problem, and I'll just pretend like it's not there and, be better than that. And then Walt Jr. is like, I can't. My legs don't work that way. And it didn't end up so good. The part where Walt Jr. was kind of speeding up like that and then barely could stop, what was going on there?
What do you mean?
Like, I don't know if Walt Jr. was like trolling his dad or trying to get a reaction of his dad, or if that's just literally what happened.
No, I think it was because he was used to using 2 feet. So when he was trying to switch his foot over to the brake, he accidentally ended up hitting the gas instead. I think it was just cut weird because I kind of got that impression too, but I don't think that was the intention. That Walt Jr. was just fucking with him. I think it was Walt Jr. just was fucking up because of he was trying to like follow the way his dad wants things to do, but it just didn't work. And maybe that's a parallel that like the way Walt does things is drive head first faster and faster and faster until you have to slam on the brakes to avoid absolute carnage.
Yeah, and that's kind of where he's going essentially, Walt Sr., because we don't know where that's going to go as far as like plot wise. This plot could go anywhere at the moment, and it seems like it's going somewhere fast and kind of like his life. He can't put the brakes on now. I mean, he can't actually. I think he can, but the problem is like how can he tell Skylar about what he's been doing? like, and have it be truthful.
Well, I mean, he did slam on the brakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
He did this fugue state thing and sent a traffic blocker flying across the road, and now he's at a dead stop and he can't move forward. He was stuck at the hospital against longer than he wanted to be. He's now stuck at home. He can't really leave home, because if Skylar comes home from wherever she's at and he's not there, like, or Walt Jr. Flynn comes home and he's not there, like, then they're gonna worry. And I mean, that's what he said, right? He can't even leave the house for more than an hour without them worrying that he's disappeared.
Yeah, it's really backfired.
So he's now he didn't pump the brakes and like slow down and ease into slowing down. No, he slammed on the brakes, and now he's paying the repercussions for having to slam on the brakes.
So I suppose the other aspect to that is control too, because I think what's been getting out of this whole drug escapade is to control power, all those different aspects we've been talking about. And this episode, he's trying to control his family life. He's trying or influence might be the more proper word, because he's not trying to like manipulate them. I mean, he is to some degree, but
he is 100% trying to manipulate them.
Okay, but he's trying to do it positively, right? In a sort of way. I mean,
that's a weird distinction to make.
I don't know how to put it. Also, there's
manipulate them to be happy.
Yeah. Well,
versus manipulate them for.
Okay. This gets to like a philosophical disagreement here, because I think everything is manipulation, but there's positive and there's negative versions of it.
He's doing it selfishly.
Yeah. Okay. Selfish. There we go. He's doing selfish manipulation here.
Yeah.
But at the very least, he's like trying to put something in, but he's trying to regain control of that situation with his family. And like, no matter what he does not have control over any of that situation.
Arguably, the more control he tries to take, the less control he has.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a bit of like Buddhism type stuff there. But I don't think that's where the plot's going, but
I think that's where it was this episode.
Yeah. And that gives him impetus to move back into the meth stuff too, which I think he was going to do anyway. That was his plan. I think he called Jesse about that, like the last episode and one before.
Yeah, he did when he was still at the hospital.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They had that conversation.
So that was his plan anyway. But I think now that his life is he's like even less control than he was before. And the thing that he wanted to get most, and he was trying to control the future of his family. Now he can't even do that. He can't even, so he's just going to have to go back in that place. And hence where he blew up at Jesse. That was him trying to regain the sense of control, and why he just felt so just.
Yeah, I mean, so when they had that conversation in the hospital, Walt's words were very short and brief. Jesse, what's changed? And this episode was showing nothing has changed. If anything, they're further back than where they started. Because before, at least, Walt had his family's respect, and like he had his family, and now he only has like, I'd imagine a couple $100 or a couple $1,000, and that's it. He doesn't even have his family anymore. And Jesse used to have a house. He used to, have his own little side business, and it was cooking on the side, but still like he could go over and see his parents, and he had a couple of, fair weather friends. Now he has literally nothing. So not only it's like what's changed. Well, actually a lot's changed for the worse, not even for the better right now. So like going back to cooking, they have arguably less to lose.
Yeah, that's a weird dynamic for the plot. Huh. And so Walt does a bunch of little things. It doesn't work out. He realizes he can't compete with Lewis, because who could?
Yeah.
And so he goes to confront or talk to Skylar about things. And he does it in a very half-ass way. Like I think Skylar's reaction was completely justified here, because he's like, I apologize in general about things.
He was specific at the beginning.
That's true. because that's true.
But when it mattered,
yeah,
when what she wanted, because she responded well to all of the things he said, him taking ownership for his actions and all of that. She responded well to that, and he was pretty much ready to like win her back over and start making things good again until he stopped. And she's like, is that it? Because really what she's saying is, okay, so you're still not going to talk about the second cell phone.
I see.
Because that's what this is about, is what that second cell phone means. And I think that goes back to your point about the phones being, connections and all of that. The second cell phone is his second life, his double life that he's leading. And he is not willing to admit that exists. And him not acknowledging the second cell phone, that second life, that not acknowledging Heisenberg is the entire crux of why she's like, I can't trust you. We're not communicating because you're not willing to admit that there's something else.
Yeah. And that goes with the theme of phones and communication, like you're saying.
And I mean, with that theme, you were talking about how Jesse and Walt were having that conversation on the phone, and then they both slammed down their receivers, and Walt ripped his out of the wall and threw it on the ground. So Walt disconnected himself. Meanwhile, Jesse's got disconnected by somebody else. Mm-hmm. So his communication was being taken from him, and Walt was choosing to disconnect the communication there, which is a very interesting dynamic there of like Jesse is at least trying. Jesse's the one making the calls. Jesse's the one's trying to communicate, and Walt is continuing to take that communication away to remove himself from being able to be communicated with Jesse, with Skylar. When Skylar leaves, Walt immediately tries to call her, and she left her cell phone there. I think your point that phones were like the point of the episode is exactly right.
So Skylar takes off, and it's not the first time she did it this episode.
Yeah.
Also, we got revealed that she found the second cell phone, it seemed. That's what they're...
I don't think so. I think it's more she just doesn't believe his shit.
Okay.
She knows he's lying. Both sides are fed up with the lies and know that the other person's lying. That Skylar to Walt and Jesse's parents to Jesse. They've heard all the lies before. They know what the lies sound like. They're sick of it. They're not putting up with it anymore. Hard cut off.
Right. You're right. What was that phone that we saw that Walt had on the counter? I thought that was his second cell phone that she found.
That was hers.
It was hers?
That was her phone. So he tried to call her when she took off.
Oh.
And she left her phone. She's like, I'm cutting off us being able to talk.
I see. That's interesting. So that also plays into it. Okay, that makes sense. So Walt is kind of left to his own, and he lets Jesse in, which I guess that's a metaphor too.
At the very, very end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After the whole fight, we'd already talked about the fight and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He lets Jesse in, and it seems like they're going to go forward with some of their plans.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both in a situation. And then, is there anything else with the Walt storyline before we move on to the last part? I mean, I think there's two more things we could discuss with the episode. Skylar, and also the beginning of the episode.
Okay.
But anything else you can think of with Walt? Okay.
No.
So Skylar, she goes to that gas station. She grabs some cigarettes, and like you said, she kind of hesitates smoking them. And I guess maybe I was, yeah. She hesitates about it, and then she sees like this other person. She sees the social judgment there, and she does it anyway. And she seems to get some sort of relief out of that way. And again, some of the plot lines here are like drugs. Like Walt's drug is power. Jesse's drug is, I don't know, fame, money, that sort of stuff. Other people's drugs are like meth. I guess Skylar's drug is nicotine. Okay, that's less epic than I thought it would sound. But she just needs to like kind of get a little bit of relief there, and she's doing it at expense of the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And and on the one hand, I kind of don't blame her. On the other hand, I think she should be more responsible. On the other hand, I feel like I can't have that opinion because I am more forgiving of Walt and everything he's done than I am of Skylar in this instance. And Walt's done a lot worse stuff for his family and the baby.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't want to give like Skylar an out on this because it's not something she should be doing. But you know, I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that scene?
So you had said a couple of episodes ago that like everything Skylar was doing was, you know, for the baby, taking care of herself and all of that stuff. And now she's doing the exact opposite of that. So I think that's what it is the contrast between the actions she used to take, which were all family oriented, and now she's doing something just for her. And not only just for her, but specifically damaging to the family. With the baby being a representation of the future of the family. She's kind of forsaking the future of the family and putting it at risk. And she obviously doesn't feel great about it, but she's still choosing to make that choice despite outward pressure, despite everything. Her own thoughts when she's second guessing it.
Yeah, there's a real irony there too, because Walt is fighting, or Walt's, you know, overall goal is to kind of create a bright future for the family there. And with his actions, it's not even that he's not creating a bright future for the family in some sort of way, but it's also his actions are actively breaking that family apart, like causing harm, which is a bit of the inverse of what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting with that aspect. If he could do what he wanted to and keep those lives separate, like he actually might work out with his goals. Though there's a whole question of where all that money came from. You know, I don't think that he's really thought that far about it. That's gonna get like looked up by the IRS or something. But it's totally counterproductive to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that aspect of Skylar is going to progress any further. I don't think it will, but maybe it will. It's hard to know. So one thing I'll say about Skylar is I think Skylar is the most reasonable person in the show. And I wouldn't say I like her the most because I don't think she's the most entertaining person in the show. I think I'd probably go with Walt. But I think she's the most reasonable and she's most level-headed. And obviously she's doing something bad here, but I think it's very relatable what she's doing, you know, with smoking. Mm-hmm. And I think she is a very integral part of the show. Because she's kind of the baseline. Everyone else is a little bit crazy, and I don't think she's crazy at all. So getting to the beginning of the episode, which we probably won't be able to discuss too much because you kind of know what's going to happen, but it seemed like there was, I'm going to assume this is like some sort of, I don't know, DEA agent or something. They had like this drug mask on or something like that, or HVAC suit. I don't know what you call it. But they had that suit on, and they're collecting evidence from the pool. And I don't think we've seen that stuffed animal unless it's in the background and I haven't noticed. But we assume, or I assume, it's going to be Walt's pool, because we know Walt has a pool. It could be somebody else's, of course. So this is alluding to the fact that something crazy is going to happen at the end of the season. Likely, Jesse and Walt are going to start cooking some meth at their house, and it's going to go belly up. And some sort of fire, or I don't even know. And I guess that that stuffed bear might be a representation of the baby's future. You know, like it's not going to have toys to play with. But yeah, you probably can't say too much on that.
I can't say anything.
Okay. So we didn't get any of Hank or Marie in this episode that I can think of.
Nope.
But that's okay because we got Lewis, and Lewis is king.
Yes.
So any other thoughts you can think of before we close out here?
Nope.
So I won't do the normal trolley thing at the end here. Why? Because we did a podcast episode. We do a podcast called We Need to Talk, and it went on for a while. And this room is very hot because I turned off the AC, and now I'm dying, and I'm exhausted. But I mean, let's just be honest here. I think the show has peaked because we did get Lewis. Lewis arrived, and yes, we can see him again and everything, but it's kind of like you see God, now you know his face, and yes, you're amazed by it. Yes, you're encapsulated, but nothing's ever the same again. And it's like why not just go back to this episode and watch that one little section of it over and over again? Why watch anything more? Do you need anything else? You're already satisfied. And that's where I think the downfall of this show is going to be coming in, because how can you beat that?
It's a good question. Will there be more Lewis? Is what everyone wants to know.
And if there is, will it live up to the hype of Lewis? Because I got
how
hype.
could it not?
Well,
It's kind of a catch-22 there, huh?
his introduction was just so perfect. I don't know how the writers like there's this whole thing where writers create a character that go beyond like themselves. And the introduction they created for this person, no, not even a person, this God is not like feasible. It's beyond them. It's like they almost made a religion right here. And like, do I trust the writers to continue that? Because now this is like the religion passed down to the hands of the writers. Can they follow up?
They've gotten us this far, Nate. We gotta trust them.
Okay, I think we'll have to do that then. So this was an episode of a show called Breaking Bad, and a reaction to the show called Pepin Reacts. Now things are happening on a scale that we can't comprehend. The baby, Walt Jr., potatoes, who knows? But I know you can. Go down in the comments, leave a like, leave a reaction to my reaction through text, hit the submit button, and ding, ding, dong. Bells all around, because, if I release a video, you got to know where that video is going to be happening. And it's going to be happening on my channel, Pepin Reacts. And also, check out We Need to Talk and Podcast NH and Podcast USA. Why am I saying that? Because cross-promotion. You guys have a great day. I react, you react, we all react, because Pepin reacts. Peace.